Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Aspire Talks, where we walk you through the how, when, and why of your study abroad journey. Our guest today is the country manager for Pakistan at Queen's University Belfast, Fahad Qayyum. Fahad, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Before we jump in, I know that you recently visited Belfast, and I would really like to know what you thought of the city. Is there a fun fact that you could maybe share with us?
So the good thing about Belfast is, the most important thing is it's the capital city of Northern Ireland, and the culture over there. You see that diversity. You see the different cultures. You will not see like a specific nationality or dominant on other nationalities. So there's a different cultures diversity you will see, and the place is amazing. It's a very amazing place. If you just go outside the Belfast, you will see some of the amazing places for the sightseeing. There are a lot of tourist attraction, so there's a lot in Belfast.
So, what was the coolest thing that you sort of experienced while you were there? Like, what did you really enjoy while doing while you were visiting?
The good thing about the Belfast is, the people are very friendly. I think
Okay.
so. The most friendly people in the whole UK you see in the Northern Ireland. The Irish people are very friendly, specifically in the Belfast. Everyone is welcoming. So that's the most, the coolest thing in the Belfast.
Amazing. And I'm sure, while you were there, obviously you spent a lot of time at Queen's University. So, what was it about the campus that sort of stood out to you?
So the campus, if you have seen our campus, the main Lennon building, we are one of the most beautiful universities in the UK. It's a red brick university. You will feel like, it's a Hogwarts feeling. You will, feel over there when you are at Queen's. So the amazing campus facilities, and we have the very old traditional red brick, the buildings as well. Then we have some modern with the state-of-the-art facilities. So our Lennon building is very prominent. So in different rankings, if you just, search the most beautiful universities in the UK, so
It
Queen's
comes
will
up.
be, in one of those universities. So that is
Um,
the.
it makes sense, that such a prestigious university would have an amazing campus. So, Queen's University, of course, it's a Russell Group university. And obviously, a lot of students associate that with, being, one of the top universities in the UK, but they don't really know the significance of that. So, what could you sort of, tell us about where Queen's University sort of sits within the Russell Group? What is it known for, its reputation, legacy, and things like that?
So we are, as you said, we are the part of the prestigious Russell Group universities. So we are among those 24 universities. Those are Russell Group universities. We are one of them, and Queen's is the ninth oldest universities in the UK.
Okay.
So we have, we the Queen's was established in 1845. So we are 180 years old university, and
Amazing.
you can say that it's a rich history. We are the only Russell Group University in the Northern Ireland, and
Okay.
that's the good thing about it. And we are among the Russell Group universities in the group. So some of our programs are very good, in a high rank with the other in comparison with the other Russell Group universities. And some other Russell Group universities are, their rankings are for their different programs
Of
are
course.
higher than the Queen's. So it is, as it is the school to school. It depends on, in which school you are and
Of
which
course.
program you are studying. So all the programs, the good thing about the Russell Group universities, all those Russell Group universities are top ranked. The research intensive universities, the facilities they are providing, these are state of the art facilities. So at Queen's, you will see everything.
Amazing. And so, on the subject of programs, I know that, Queen's University has a huge portfolio. But if you were to pick their top five programs, what would those be, in your opinion?
It's a difficult question. In the top five, for us, for me, all the programs are, with all programs are good. But top five, I think so. The number one is pharmacy.
Okay.
Then number two is cybersecurity. Number three, maybe MBA, because we are triple accredited MBA.
Amazing.
Number 4, maybe artificial intelligence. Number 5, uh, education and leadership. So these are, top 5 programs if I pick. Because pharmacy is, our highest ranked program is pharmacy. So we
Okay.
are ranked 19th in the world for pharmacy, and number 2 in the UK. So the facilities we are providing, and the graduates, our graduates are, are in the industry. They are doing the jobs with the amazing companies, with the amazing pharmaceutical companies in the Ireland, in the UK, and globally. So, that's why, I picked pharmacy as a number 1 choice.
Interesting. I think that's a really nice mix of programs, and all of these are the sort of programs that sort of lead to high-paying careers. But sometimes, students, when they're thinking about studying in the UK, they worry about things like work opportunities, things like that. But Queen's has an impressive employability rate. So, what do you think? What is it about Queen's that is sort of different in terms of how quickly their students get employed, how easy it is for them to secure work after graduating?
So we have amazing employability services. We have a department, career and employability services department, and that department helps the student throughout their academic journey. From the beginning, even we have signed up with some of the top career advisory companies. Even from the beginning, before the enrollment, students, they can register themselves. They can create an account, and they can find the jobs before coming to the Belfast. The
Okay.
part-time job opportunities they can find, and throughout the year, the Queens, provide amazing facilities and services. We conduct job fair throughout the year. So there are 2 job fairs university conduct in a year, the one in the middle of the year, and the second one in the end of the year, like in December. And other than that, those 2 job fairs, the schools itself, they invite different companies on the campus, and different like our law school invite different law firms throughout the years, and the facilities are amazing. And other than that, Queen's is working with more than 3,000 employers globally. So our university is connected with 3,000 employers,
Okay.
where our graduates are currently doing the jobs, and they are having the placements, because in some of the programs we have the placement facilities as well. So
Okay.
the career, we always focus on the career and employability.
So, you've touched on this a little bit, but I feel like a lot of students are sometimes sort of drawn to big name cities, right? Like when they're thinking about studying in the UK, they're like, okay, we want to sort of go to London because that's probably where we're going to get more work opportunities, but that isn't always the case. So, I'm interested in knowing what the job landscape is like in Belfast. Is there a lot of competition? Are there fewer work opportunities than compared to say, London? How would you, what do you think of that?
I always say that there are more job opportunities in the Belfast. Why I say? Because there is a less competition. If you just see in London, I can give you an example. Maybe there are 100 jobs in London, and maybe there are 10 jobs in Belfast. But against those 100 jobs, just see the competition. How many graduates are just competing against those 100 jobs.
Of course.
So just to see how number of universities are already in the London, the graduates they are producing every year, and then the many universities have their sub campuses in London. So I think there are more than 40, roughly I can say that 40 direct London based universities, or indirectly universities having their campuses in London, the small campuses. So every year the pool is getting bigger and bigger for
Of
the
course.
graduates, and the competition is high in London. But in Belfast, if you see, there are only 2 universities. The competition is less,
Okay.
and the job opportunities are more. And after Brexit, many European companies, when they moved out from England, and they moved to the to Dublin because of the low tax rate. So they do their operations through, the UK operations through the Northern Ireland because of the still, the free trade agreement between Europe and the Northern Ireland. So there are a lot of European companies where, our graduates, they secure jobs after completing their degrees. So the opportunities are not only in the UK, but in the Europe as well. So that's
That
the good.
that's very interesting. And are there any sort of specific fields that, Belfast is sort of the hub for or is, known for?
So the Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, the both, the countries, they are very, very famous for the pharmaceutical. If you see the world top leading pharmaceutical companies in the top 10, maybe the top 9 are in the maybe in the Northern Ireland or in the Republic of Ireland. So the pharmaceutical industry is a very, very big industry
Okay.
in Ireland. And other than that, cybersecurity. Belfast is the hub of cybersecurity. It provides cybersecurity services to the Europe, to the rest of the world, and Queens itself, provide cybersecurity services to many, many, international companies, even in companies in the US. So these two, industries are big in Belfast, in Northern Ireland. And other than that, some business programs in artificial intelligence and some business programs also have the opportunities.
That's amazing because I feel like those are the sort of, fields that are sort of having a real moment at this time. And so for, students, obviously affordability is a concern as well. And big name cities obviously come with that price tag as well. So what does that look like in Belfast? So besides, of course, tuition and scholarships, and which again we'll speak about as well, but things like, living costs, day-to-day expenses, the sort of small things that, add up.
So I can say that Belfast is a very, very affordable city. I think so it's one of the most affordable cities in the UK. Although Belfast is a small city, but it's a very well-developed city. And because it's a capital city in the Northern Ireland, our cost of living, if I just give you a roughly idea, the yearly cost in Belfast is, including everything, it is from 6,000 to 8,000 pound a year. So if you just break down monthly, in a monthly cost of living, it will be like 500 to maximum 700 pounds per
Amazing.
month. So this is very affordable.
Of course, I mean, those are some, impressive figures considering usually, when you think about living expenses, especially around London, that's like, I think, upwards of £9,000. So this is like considerably lower. So, in terms of tuition and scholarships, right? What are the international scholarships that Queen's offers?
We are offering a wide range of scholarships. There are some automatic scholarships ranging from 4,000 pounds up to 7,500 pounds. So these are some automatic scholarships. Then we have some other scholarships as well, like Vice Chancellor Attainment Scholarship. Although it's a very competitive,
Okay.
but we have, it's a 50% tuition fee waiver. Then we have a family scholarship discount up to 20% if any of your family members is already graduated from Queen's, maybe your parents, your siblings. So you can avail a 20% discount on the tuition fee. So the scholarships, varies from program to program as well, and amount as well, from 4,000 pound goes up to 50% tuition fee waiver.
And so the 50%, like what about how much does that come up to? I'm sure that varies from program to program, but what would a rough figure for that be?
So it goes up to, for we have 50% scholarship for both undergraduate and for both postgraduate as well. If it is for undergraduate, it is for throughout the degree program for 3 years, for 4 years, and it will cost like, it will be the amount, like roughly, if I say that, like 12 to 13,000 pounds
Okay.
per year for undergraduate programs, and for postgraduate programs it's like same, up to 13,000 pounds, up to 14,000 pounds, depending on the program, in which program you're studying. So,
Amazing. That seems very generous, especially for, a Russell Group
yeah,
university of this
again, it's a
ranking.
competitive as well for this scholarship. Yeah.
Of course, of course. And then, you've again talked a little about living expenses and things like that, but I'm just wondering, what are the accommodation options like at Queen's University?
So we have a wide accommodation, ranges. We have 4,500 rooms accommodation facility at Queen's. So all of our accommodations are single room accommodation with attached washroom, including all utilities, gas, electricity, internet, and some amazing facilities like, we have the gyms in our accommodation, facilities. We have 24/7 coffee shops, even the free coffee served at reception area, and then some amazing facilities. So our accommodation, ranges from like 6,000 pound up to 8,500, and some, the studio rooms goes up to 10,000 pounds. Studio rooms including, same with the kitchen in the room and, ensuite rooms. So these are the accommodation, the options we have. It covers everything. Like, you do not need to pay any utility bills like electricity, gas, internet, water, everything, covered is in this accommodation.
Okay, and what would you, advise students? Like, if this is, obviously the accommodation sounds really affordable and it's very convenient with all the facilities that you provide and everything. So how can they ensure that they get a space,
Yeah. So we have a policy, any student who applies before 30th of June, so there is a guaranteed accommodation.
Okay.
So we guarantee that we will give them the accommodation because our accommodation is very high in demand. So any student who is applying to Queen's, normally they also apply for our accommodation. So I encourage all the students, those who want to, take Queen's accommodation, they apply at least before 30th of June. So if they apply before 30th of June, all they need to secure the offer letter first from the Queen's,
Okay.
and then they can apply for the accommodation. They need to submit the online application. So we will start allocating the accommodation after 30th of June. So it will be on first come, first served basis. So any student who applied until the 30th of June will get the guaranteed accommodation. And it's not like the students only apply before 30th of June will get this accommodation. But if any student applies after, but it depends on the availability.
There's a chance that they might,
Yeah,
but they may
there's
not.
a chance they may or may not, get the accommodation.
Got it. That's very good to know, and I really hope students, make a note of that. So, while you're sort of, giving us these tips, I'm just wondering, in terms of the application, what does the admissions team look for in an application? Are there any sort of specific tips that you would, want students to know when they're applying to Queen?
So the most important tip is to apply as early as possible because some of our programs are capped. Like, we cannot go beyond those numbers. Like, some programs, we required specific, number of applicants. So if we get, the acceptances from the students, the university normally close those programs. We do not go beyond that limit because, they focus very much on the quality, not on the quantity. Like, we do not fill our, in our classrooms with the hundreds of students. So we go with the specific numbers. So the first tip is apply as early as possible, complete all your documents in the application to avoid any delay in the outcome. So sometimes, students do not put the transcript, like, they just provide last degree transcript, and they do not provide their schooling or high schooling, the transcripts or their certificates. So which sometimes, cause delays in the application outcome. So the second tip is to complete the application, to provide all the required information, provide all the required documents to get the offer letter as early as possible. So these are, the two important tips. from my
Thank you
side.
for sharing that. I'm also so on the one hand, you have students who are obviously they're aiming high, they're looking for Russell Group universities, but then at the same time that can feel a bit daunting as well, right? Like the idea of rejection, of maybe not getting into your dream university. So what are the entry requirements like at Queen's?
So our entry requirements are different for some different programs. Like 50% of our programs at Queen's, if we talk about the postgraduate program, for 50% of the programs, we require UK 2-1, second class honors with upper tuition. And for the remaining 50%, we require UK 2-2, second class honors with lower division. So its equivalency in Pakistani universities is, we have categorized Pakistani universities. There's a list. We have identified a few universities as tier 1 universities in Pakistan. For those universities, our entry requirement is little flexible. We have reduced the entry requirement for them. For those programs where we require UK 2-1, if any student is coming from the tier 1 universities list, we will accept those students on 2.7 CGPA.
Okay.
And if they are applying for any program where we require UK 2-2, we will accept those students on 2.5 CGPA.
Okay.
If the student is not from the tier 1 universities list, it means the student will be considered as tier 2 universities graduate. So for tier 2 universities graduate, we require 3 CGPA for programs where we require UK 2-1, and 2.7 CGPA will be considered as UK 2-2. So
Okay.
their 2.7 will be required where we require UK 2-2. So this is for tier 2 universities graduates. So the entry requirement for tier 2 is slightly higher than the graduates from the tier 1 universities. For undergraduate, we require A level or IB. So in general, majority of the programs for undergraduate, we require 1A, 2Bs at least. For some, there is exception. For some programs, we require 2A, 1B, but majority we require 1A, 2Bs. Okay. And there is again exception at clearing time. Maybe there for some programs the entry requirements get reduced for different programs.
Okay, so that's actually quite accessible.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of entry requirements. Okay, so just before we close, I'm just wondering about what you sort of mentioned that in terms of career support, students have a lot to look forward to at Queen's. But what sort of student services does Queen's provide students? And adding on to that, is there a considerable sort of Pakistani community in Belfast, especially at Queen's, that students can look forward to?
So we have 100 plus nationalities, at Queen's. So, at Queen's, we have our student union is number 1 in the UK. They have been awarded, the best student union, and the services they are giving. And we have more than 200 clubs and societies at Queen's. So there is a Pakistani student society as well, any student in the Muslim student society as well. Any society or any club that any student wants to create, or they have the group of students, so they can create a society and a club, and they can make the members. And the facilities are amazing. We have, other than the career or employability services, we have the well-being and student services department. If any student is struggling in their studies, so we have the team. They help the students in they are helping in their studies. If they are struggling in assignments, they will not make their assignment, but they can guide them if they need any help or anything. So in studies, in student well-being, in placements, in careers, or anything, any service they need, Queen's is always providing all the services to the student, and they are very welcoming. And accepting the students' feedback, their reviews, and anything they want from the Queens, any sport they need. So all the sports are available.
Amazing. That's very good to know. And thank you so much for, taking the time today to share these insights with us. It's been such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you once again for inviting me.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone for watching. See you in the next one.